This morning's class, apart from a box of tissues for blowing your nose or hay fever season, just one block, nothing extra needed from that. We'll take a little breath, have that towards the front of the mat, allow ourselves to come into hero's pose. So knees together, heels are out wide. You can use the block underneath your bottom if your sitting bones aren't able to get to the floor. And obviously, if that's still not easy in your knees, you could take a brick and put those across where your sitting bones would lie on top of the block. Give yourself another few inches. We're just going to sit here for a moment, really kind of settle ourselves in to allow ourselves to prepare mentally for the class. And close the eyes. I'm just going to get up and close the door because there's a little bit of noise from outside. And we'll start to move out of this. We're going to come straight into a standing position. Just allow ourselves to move the block out towards the front. And bring the hands and knees towards the front of the mat, shoulders over the wrists, knees underneath the hips. Just pressing away from the ground a little bit, ready to take a few rounds of cat-cow. So letting the shoulders roll back a little bit as the chest comes through, tailbone towards the sky, keeping the belly drawn in. And on the exhale, allow yourself to just ripple the spine up gently towards the sky. And if indeed, like me, this is the first real sort of stretch of the morning, or stretch of the day, you'll probably find that your spine doesn't move quite as freely as it does in the evening. So allow yourself to focus on smooth transition rather than how deep you're able to move into the pose. Come back into neutral spine, tuck the toes underneath, just lift the knees away from the floor. So moving through down dog, we'll take the hands towards the toes to a forward bend. Bring the hands onto the shins, allow ourselves to lift up halfway. And on the exhale, folding back down again. So as you fold, allow yourself to soften the knees a little more. Get those ribs right down onto the thighs. Bend the knees as much as you need to for that to happen. And then on the inhale, lifting yourself back up. And on the exhale, all the way back down again. We'll take that one more time and do this half lift. Our way back down. And we're going to take that 3 times to come up to the sky. Bring the hands onto the hips, lifting up, moving through Tadasana, arms above the head, and into a very gentle back bend. We're thinking more of extending out through the spine than worrying about how deep we lean back. Bring the hands into the heart, hinge over the hips, soften the knees a little. Keep the spine long and flat for as long as possible, and then allow yourself to really roll it in. Bring those ribs down, hands into the hips again. Allow yourself to lift up on the exhale. Inhale the hands towards the sky. Little back bend on your exhale, lifting up. Chance to press the feet into the floor. And the belly again. Hands into the heart, breathing in. Use your exhale to come down to the ground again. Bring the hands into the hips for the last time. That's just to lift back up. I'm just going to shake out the legs a little bit more closer towards the front of the mat. If you're going to use a block, you could use a brick, but a block's just as useful. I'm going to place that between the ankle bones so that the block is away from the ground. And then on the inhale, just lifting the hands out in front and up towards the sky. I'm going to try and draw the ribs down towards the hips. So rather than coming into a back bend, back stays very flat. And let the hands come back down on the exhale. And inhaling up again. Just squeezing the legs together enough for that block to stay steady between the ankles, lifted away from the ground. We'll take one more of those. Inhaling up. Drawing the ribs in. Conscious effort to draw your tummy to your spine. Send the tailbone down to the floor. And then we try and do the same again, but this time lifting up onto the tippy toes. Now we'll come up and we'll stay up. Allow the hands to come back down again. And we'll lift again. Just going to take this 3 times. One last time. And each time the shoulders get a little further back. We'll bring the heels down, hands into the heart. Allow ourselves to exhale down to the floor. Oops. Repetition on the way. And take a little breath. Just hanging into this forward bend. Now, usually we'd have the fingertips on the floor, the bending the knees and ribs on thighs. If you're able to feel safe in your back, to take the hands away from the ground, you just cradle the elbows and then rest either your forehead or the top of your crown of your head against your forearms. Allow yourself to sink in a little deeper. We're just looking really to get a deeper stretch into the top of the hamstrings. Which is a handy place to do, apparently, to blow your nose. Last couple of breaths. Getting used to drawing the tummy muscles in. Okay, now we bring the hands onto the hips. Allow ourselves to lift up slowly. Bring the hands in towards the heart. Now zigzag the toes together, that remaining little bit of distance so they touch. Allow yourself to sit back as if you're coming into a chair. So the first part of that is to really bring your knees over your toes. And then as you sit back a little more, the weight transfers into the heels. You're going to try and pin the legs together, shift the weight into the right leg, extend the left leg forwards, so thigh presses into thigh, the foot is raised from the ground. And then we'll take the hands out in line with the body. So hopefully there's a line between the shoulders, hips, and fingertips. Bring the foot gently back, staying in position. Bring the hands back in towards your heart. Allow yourself to just take a moment to kind of gather your thoughts and your balance. Shift the weight to the left foot. Extend the right leg forwards. And elevate the arms out again, out in front and high. So active through the fingertips. Arms are stretched out. So trying to get your little finger and thumb as far apart as possible. And then we'll bring the foot back in. Whew. Let the legs open up. We'll hinge the remainder of the way down slowly. With feet together, it's slightly tighter in the hamstrings. Fold ourselves in. Take a little breath from there. Hands flat to the floor. Step it back into that down dog. Now bring the knees to the ground, so they're underneath the hips, and the shoulders over the wrists again. We're going to do 2 rounds of cat-cow. And noticing if that feels any different in the spine now. And then we're going to start to take that into a barrel roll. So moving the ribs right out to the side, high, roll them over to the opposite side and down. We'll do a few repetitions in one direction, and then we'll move into the opposite. I'm going to try and keep the arms straight. So we're moving through the shoulders, the hips, and the ribs, getting that lateral movement into the spine. And then we'll start to move in the opposite direction. Generally using the exhale to lift up is a kind of a more natural response, but some people breathe the other way around. That's perfectly okay. As long as you're breathing in and out, that's kind of the key thing here. And just the head moves around a little bit. So we do get a little bit of movement into the neck as well. Coming up and around for the last time. And we'll tuck toes underneath and ease our way into down dog. Now down dog, first down dog of the day. You just have to walk the feet out a little bit, try and have those feet hip distance apart. Feet parallel to each other, so the heels are hiding nicely behind your ankles. Looking towards your hands, just check they're nice and flat to the floor. You don't have to walk your legs out, but if you do, it's a slow measured movement so that you can stretch the soles of your feet out. You'll notice it around the back of the Achilles, sort of the back of the ankle heel area, moving into the lower part of the calf muscle. Quite a big stretchy area there, maybe in the back of the knees. You might even notice it in the hamstrings as well. Okay, I'm going to take a little twist here whilst we're here. So we'll take the feet wide and just walk hands in enough, hopefully only a few inches, to bring the heels flat to the ground with straight legs. We are pressing the feet down into the floor, so we're still getting those thigh muscles to lift and contract. We'll take the left hand over to the right side, and twist underneath, and take 5 breaths here. We're still lifting the hips up, pressing down on that one hand. The more weight we can take into the legs, the easier it is maybe on that shoulder. And then we'll cross that over to the other side. Enjoy the twist. Imagine that you can turn your chest towards that long side of the mat and really just noticing how far your body moves with your imagination. One last breath. Bring the hands back to the ground. Walk fingers in towards the front of the mat. Bring the feet back into normal stance for our down dog. Move into a plank. Let the knees come back down to the floor. We're going to sit back into child's pose. We're not going to stay there very long. We'll just let the elbows and the forehead come to the floor, taking the breath in. And use the exhale to round back up. And we'll draw the chest forwards into the cow part of the cat-cow. And then cat, rounding the spine, sitting back into child's pose. Lifting our way back up again. I'll come up for the last time and then into a neutral position. I'm going to bring the left hand in line with the left knee. Slide the right foot to the back of the mat. Now, if I drop the heel in, I'm also going to pivot on the left knee and take the foot out to the side as far as I can. And then allow the right hand to come up towards the sky. Now, if you want to take that a little further, we'll come up onto the fingertips. We'll take a breath in. Use the exhale to lift. So now there's less weight on that wrist and the shoulder. We're having to do more work through the core to hold ourselves up. And then we can add a little bit more balance work into that by lifting the long leg out and up towards the height of the hip, a comfortable lift. You're going to take a breath, flex the foot that's extended out, and slowly start to turn your inner thigh on this lifted leg towards the ground. So you're lifting your heel more towards the ceiling and the toes down. You try to press the hips a little bit over towards the right side in front of you as well, rather than behind. So quite a lot of things to remember to do. And we'll bring the foot slowly down, hand down, and we'll bring the hands and knees back onto the ground, into a tabletop. And we'll just take it into the second side. So we'll move the right hand. Left leg goes back as the heel drops down. Right foot goes out to the side. Press the hips forwards a little bit. Nice off the lift up. Try to have your head in line with the rest of your body if you can. Going to come off onto the fingertips on an exhale. And just take a moment to get used to the idea of holding yourself up. When you're ready, going to elevate the leg that's lengthened out as high as you comfortably can. So you feel that in your outer hip muscles a little bit, into the glutes. Flex the foot, roll the thigh in. Breathe. One last breath. And use your foot down on the exhale. Bring everything back down to the floor. We'll take a little breath from there. Allow ourselves to just tuck the toes underneath. Sit back onto the heels. Bring the hands up. Take the arms out wide. Now we're just going to take the hands behind the back and loosely interlace the fingers. And then we're going to shift both hands over towards the right side. See if you can get your fingers to the side of your hip. Now your left arm is very much wrapped around your body, but you're going to try and draw your right elbow, which is closest to the side of the camera at the moment. You try and draw that towards the center line, so opening out the front of the chest a little bit more. And then we'll lift up slowly. Allow ourselves to untuck the toes. Sit gently back down onto the heels and move the hands collectively over to the opposite side. Again, just drawing the shoulder blades together. That left elbow comes towards the center line. Try and keep the body straight to the front of the mat. So a nice strong sort of shoulder and chest opening. It is a static hold, but a little bit of breath work in there as well. Feel those ribs opening. Last breath. Release the hands. Allow yourself to bring yourself into the front of the mat. Tuck the toes underneath. Back into down dog. I'm going to draw the left leg into a scissor. Come up onto the tippy toes, the right foot. Draw the knee in towards the chest. Hold myself on the tippy toes. Take another breath in. Use the exhale to come forwards into your lunge. Drop your left foot towards the front of the mat. And drop the back heel down. Lift into warrior two. Slow coming up. Looking through that middle finger on the front hand. And start to relax the shoulders. You can adjust to make your warrior two wider if you wish. Now you're here, feeling safe. But just out of your peripheral vision, checking your knees over your ankle on that front leg. I'm going to pulse slowly on an exhale to straighten the front leg, but pressing down really into the foot. And then inhale, and come back. Exhale. Now, generally the breath is quite long and there's not a great deal of distance to travel. You want to have a sense of moving or floating the whole time through. So there's no pause where you go, okay, I'm holding for 2 seconds or 3 or 4, where you're not moving. There's a little bit of movement happening the whole time through. So these are very connected movements. We're very aware of the body moving. We're feeling the muscle fibers working throughout the body and the entirety of the leg. Come down to the last time. And then we'll take the hands high above the shoulders and rotate in towards the front of the mat. I'm going to lift the back heel, come into a high crescent pose. Now allow yourself to bend the back knee just a little bit. And on the exhale, I'm going to try and straighten the front leg. And then we'll come back in. And we're trying to keep the body upright. Slowly come back down again. And down. Last time coming up. Into the bent knee. And bring the hands down onto the inside of the front leg. We'll wiggle the back foot a little bit further back. Take a little breath. Walk the fingers around to the long side of the mat. Turning the toes in. And on the exhale, hinge at the hips slowly. Let ourselves fold down into that wide leg forward bend. Easing the elbows together lightly. Keeping the shoulders away from the ears. Down through the feet. And getting a sense of somebody magically lifting the hips up towards the sky for us. That would be nice. Okay, take one more breath. Bring ourselves back around. Now we're going to walk the hands around and turn the front foot towards the front of the mat. And then slowly bring your right hand towards your hip as you open up, keeping your left hand onto the floor. Really try and open your chest up to the long side of the mat, so you're rotating around. A bit of weight in the back foot, hips are underneath. You might need to bring the groin over a little. And then we're going to lift from here into our warrior two. Bring the hands in towards our heart. Straighten the front legs, turn the toes towards the long side of the mat. And then we'll gradually manipulate the feet and move towards the back of the mat. Opening the arms out, and we'll sink into warrior two. We're just towards the back of the mat this time. And again, just widen out if you need to, if you found you've moved around a little bit. Soften the shoulders. Slow exhale, allowing your front leg to straighten. Easing your way down again on the inhale. Try to keep those shoulders relaxed, otherwise they'll get a little bit bony. We'll come into warrior two again. Keep hands high. Rotate into the back of the mat for high crescent. Soften the back knee. The body is very upright. And then we'll straighten the front leg slowly again. Knees back down. So the back leg does move around a little bit. Yeah, the bend softens, I guess. But focus on trying to let your knee not travel further than your ankle. And keeping your tummy muscles drawn in so your body can stay really upright effectively. It does challenge your balance as well. And there is a temptation to move quickly. But we want that front thigh, hamstring, and glute to work. Come down for the last time. Bring hands down on the inside of the thigh. Walk the toes around, long side of the mat. Take a little time to turn the toes in and the heels out. That helps you get that articulation into the hip joint so you can actually drop your pelvis over your hips and your body follows as you come down. So rather than feeling like you're pulling your body into it, it's an easy release in. That's what we're looking for. It comes from turning those heels out a little bit more. I mean, everybody's body is going to be slightly different. So you have to take that into consideration, different shapes of hips and hip joints. But as a general rule, turning the feet in will give you a little bit more of a sense of freedom. So one last breath here. Whew. Let ourselves lift up halfway. We'll walk again towards the back of the mat, turning that foot into the front end of our mat as it is for us. Bring the left hand underneath you. Slowly, sorry, that's your right hand underneath you. And take your left hand towards the sky. Got myself confused there just for a moment. I'm going to turn your ribs around and up towards the sky. So don't pull too much on the shoulders. It's easy to kind of try and pull your arm excessively behind you. Really, we want the rotation to come from the body and from the hip. Last breath in. Bring hands down to the floor. And we're going to walk the fingers all the way around towards our normal front end of the mat. Step ourselves back into a downy dog. We'll stretch out through both legs. And then we'll come forwards into a plank. We're going to take it into half plank. So keeping the hips high, take a breath. Push forwards on the tippy toes so the shoulders come over the fingertips. Bend the elbows
back slowly in towards your ribs. Take one breath and then let yourself come all the way down to the floor. Pushing back a little bit to bring the chin onto the mat, and then adjusting the hands all the way down to the bottom of the ribs for low cobra. I'm also going to take the feet out a little wider and roll the heels outwards. Inhaling, I'm going to lift the chest. Yourself to exhale down. Inhaling up. And exhaling down. 3 more. Little squeeze of the elbows, drawing of the shoulder blades together at the top. So kind of a little gentle squeeze. And then relax a little bit as you come down. Last time coming up. And then we move that into a serpentine cobra. So still more cobras. Right shoulder lifts, chest follows, left shoulder rolls up and back as the right shoulder starts to drop down. The chest comes to the floor. And then we'll take it left shoulder, chest lift, roll it across, right shoulder draws back, the shoulder drops down. So the head does move freely around in this. Try and keep it slow and steady. Now we're going to peel away from the ground, keeping the elbows in. Bring ourselves back into child's pose. Bring ourselves back up to take a kind of open version of high cobra. Just going to have the knees on the floor. And then roll that back into child's pose. So I don't want to take the legs away from the ground, but the bootlaces are down. I'm pushing down through the shins a little bit, rolling the shoulders back. So I don't want to be too excessive in this moving backwards and forwards in the same direction. So imagine if you bend a credit card continually to try and break it because you lost your scissors. Well, if you were doing this rapidly, that's the kind of effect you'd be getting on your back muscles. And I just want to lengthen them out rather than wreck them. So last time coming through into that higher version of cobra. And then we're going to let the elbows bend down again and the chest to the floor. We're going to take a gecko pose. So the hands come out wide. It's like a press up position for the hands. Run the fingertips, elbows high. And the exhale, we press into the hands deliberately. Draw the belly in, lift the chest forwards as the hands lift us up. Inhale, all the way down. Again, try and roll the heels and ankles out if you're able to. Avoid pulling excessively on the neck. Let the work come from your body. So there's a genuine feeling of the discs having plenty of space to move around in, not crushing the discs or the nerves at all. Nice and open. Getting used to the idea of controlling the tummy muscles in as well. It's kind of easy when we're squeezing down. This is still controlling, but working in a longer way. We'll come up one more time. Into that exhale. And we'll bring ourselves down. Now we're going to come into our scorpion pose. So if you've not done those before, they're a fairly simple move. So take your hands wide, crucifix style, palms face down, chin on the ground. Allow your feet to come together on the center line of the mat, and then lift deliberately up onto the fingertips. So the hands and the arms are off the ground. It's just the fingertips making that connection. You're going to bend the left knee so the toes go towards the sky, and then begin to press down into the right side of your body and the right thigh as you lift your left thigh as high as you can. Once you've gone as high as you can, you're going to start to roll gently into your left side and bring your foot as close to your hand as you can. So head on the ground, roll onto the side, just bring the foot close as you can, and then to come back out, lift the knee high deliberately. Roll gently on the side of the body, use your fingers to walk around on the floor a little bit. Bring the foot back down to the ground. And then we'll just take it into the second side. So slow lift, high as we can. And then start to roll it over. And try to have your head and your face facing the long side of the mat rather than looking down towards your toes. So it just puts a little bit more pressure into your neck and your shoulders, kind of jams you up. It doesn't do you any favors in the movement. Legs come back down. We'll take it again to the opposite side. I take this to my right side for the last time. And take it to the left for the last time as well. Using the toes to walk the foot as close to the hand as you can. And bring the legs back down. We'll take the feet hip distance apart again as we bring the toes underneath, hands down to the bottom of the ribs, elbows in, peel away from the floor. Lift ourselves back onto all fours. We're coming into the front end of the mat again. Tucking the toes under, we're going to ease ourselves into a down dog. Scissor, right leg to the sky. Draw the knee in towards the chest and bring the foot through the front of the mat into a nice lunge. Press out through the back heel, beyond the fingertips, let the shoulders relax a little bit. Tummy drawn in. And then soften the knee down to the floor and tucking the toes. Sweep your arms alongside your body. Use your exhale to lift up. We're going to take that into a little bit of a back bend as well, but we're going to try and lift up out of the pelvis by pressing down into that shin underneath us. And then bring the hands back. So again, we keep the space in the spine. We'll step back into a down dog. And scissor our left leg. Draw the knee in towards the chest and through into a lunge. And press out to a straight back leg. Lower the back knee down. Untuck the toes, hands alongside the body. Lift up, draw the belly in. Lift up, press down through the shin. Beautiful. Bring it all back. To down dog again. Last stretch back and up. Coming into plank. Let the knees come down to the floor, and we'll sweeten the feet out to the side. Whew. Come down onto our bottoms. So I'm going to take the block again and put that between my thighs. Have my feet a little wider than the block would normally put them into. So trying to get a position where my heels are the same distance apart as my knees. Lifting the bottom, and slide that in until it feels like the shins are vertical. Hands in a little more. Take a breath. Bend the elbows, chin in towards the chest. Carefully roll the spine down very, very slowly to the ground. And then just bring the hands alongside the body. Now we're going to come into bridge pose, and we're going to keep the block between the thighs. So squeeze a little bit inwards. Draw the tummy muscles down. Curl the tailbone away from the floor. Let the hips lift. Start to press down more through the feet and press the knees forwards. Draw your chest towards your chin as you start to press a little bit more down through the shoulder blades and through the back of the arms and the palms. And keep working on trying to press your thighs forwards and encouraging the hips to lift up by that process. And then slowly roll the spine back down to the floor. We'll take a couple of breaths there. We're going to do that again, but this time we're going to move around in the arms a little bit as well. So we'll start to press down, so lift that way gently from the ground. Allow yourself to come as high as you can. So squeeze the thighs together, press the knees forwards, the feet down. Feel the glutes as well as your legs fire up. Chin and chest, like magnets, pull together. And then inhale the hands high. And roll the hands down towards the mat behind you. We're going to leave them there whilst we continue to try to lift the hips, press down through the feet, and knees forwards. It should start to feel a little bit more of a challenge to keep the legs pressing in onto that block. And then you're going to slowly roll the spine down to the ground over several breaths. And try and leave the arms and relax back there, back of the mat. Now allow the arms to come out wide, like an upside down crucifix with the palms facing up towards the sky. I'm going to shimmy the hips over towards the left side a little bit. Let the legs roll over towards the right. You can turn the head to the left if that feels easy in your neck. My main objective is to keep the shoulders flat to the ground. And whereas we would normally let these legs roll all the way down to the floor, we try and keep the block between the thighs. So for many of us to do that, the legs are going to be a little bit more lifted away from the ground. So the blocks are very light, really there just to serve as a way of us connecting and knowing where our body is. Giving us a little bit of sense of direction and awareness. I'll slowly bring the knees back up and bring the spine back into the center line. Breath there, just to kind of let the body untangle itself. And then we can move the hips over to the right, let the legs go down to the left. Okay, bring the legs back up again. And the spine back into alignment. We'll take a little breath and just move, block behind the back of the head. And walk the feet in towards the bottom and together. Slide the right heel all the way out until the leg is straight. Ideally, the toes point up towards the sky and the thigh as well. We're pressing the heel and the calf very gently against the floor. So we're not pressing down, we're just trying to get to that point where we make contact. So we can lengthen the leg out. Feel the sort of hip flexors, getting a little bit of a stretch up here at the top of the thigh into that pelvis. We'll draw the left knee in and take the hands initially around the shin and draw the knee towards us. You're going to carefully move into a second pose by taking the hands around the back of the thigh, interlacing the fingers, and slowly extending that left heel towards the sky. Now I want to do my best to press out through the heel and draw the hip down on that left side at the same time. It'll give the effect of the leg straightening out. So without pressing the knee or trying to work through the knee, actually just lengthen the leg out in two different directions. And just start to get strong with your hamstring pressing into your hands. You're going to feel that pulling around your shoulders, your neck. Try and keep the neck long. We've already lifted the head a little bit, the block underneath, to kind of help out. It'll stop us craning the head back too far. Belly's drawn in as well as the hip coming down. Last breath in. And bring feet back down to the ground. Now we'll slide the right leg back in along the floor. And then once it's reached position, we'll slide the left leg out. Again, as best you can down the center line of the mat. And flexing the foot, lengthening out through the heel. Getting that little bit of a stretch in the top of the thigh, and also feeling sort of the pelvis sort of twisting down and out towards the front of the mat, just a fraction. So it's already starting to move in that area. I'll carefully draw the right knee in and take the hands around the shin and draw that leg a little more in towards the body. So just using gentle bit of pressure with the arms, drawing the shoulder blades back rather than working into the biceps. The long leg, as we said before, trying to get the heel and the calf to gently touch the floor. It's going to feel like you're pressing down a little bit to do that. and lengthening the rest away from you as you draw that right knee in. One more easy breath. And then carefully start to transition the hands to the back of the thigh, interlacing the fingers. It's very muggy today, so legs are a bit sweaty and hands are as well. So do your best. Heel to the sky, hip down, and get the leg as straight as we can be, whilst lengthening out through the left side, remembering the toes pointing to the sky. So some of us a little bit more internal rotation needed than others. And we can bring that foot gently back down to the ground, close into your bottom, and slide the left foot back in. Now we'll allow the knees to come in towards the body. We're taking them wide to come into child's pose, but just before we do, we'll take the arms through the center and just leave the hands on top of the shins. Allow yourself to roll those ankles around and stretch out those toes, because when you do the previous pose and you've got the foot flexed for quite a long period of time, it can get a little bit sticky in the ankle joints. So we'll just roll them around and free them up a little bit. And then the hands are pretty close to sliding down over the bootlace side and taking the hands around little toe side. So I'm going to try and bring the tailbone down to the floor. Use your head back gently onto the block if you used it to see where you were moving your hands to. And if you're happy to do this with the block away from the head, that's fine as well. We'll slowly bring one foot at a time above the knee, so it's directly pointing towards the sky with the sole of the foot. And we're going to try and draw the tailbone down to the floor, relax the shoulders a little bit. Obviously, we need a very strong grip, so you'll feel that in your forearms and your fingers pretty quickly. The heels are the same distance apart, hopefully, as your knees are. You can kind of look out the peripheral eye view and know where they are. Now you can either stay here, or we're just going to take it a step further. You can wiggle your fingers around towards your big toe and hook your index finger and middle finger around said big toe. And then in your own time, start to press the heels away. Gradually open the legs out into that wide leg version, the supine version. At this point, you start to wonder whether you've got over short arms or over long legs. So do your best to keep the tailbone on the floor, the spine long. Last breath in. Bring the feet gently back. And everyone can slowly bring the feet to the floor close to your bottom. And we're going to move directly into Shavasana. We're going to take a nice long rest here. Hands about 12 inches or a ruler's length from the side of the body. Use your toes to walk your feet forwards and use the whole width of your mat. The legs to just roll gently out. And feel the whole of your body gradually yielding down towards the ground. You may want to move the block out from behind the head. You can leave it there by all means if that feels comfortable to you. It's your practice. Work with what your body needs. Roll the shoulders underneath, wiggle out through the hips. Fingers and toes have a little wiggle. The eyes are gently shut. And we let the tongue just drift away from the roof of the mouth. If you want to cool yourself down more, allow yourself to poke your tongue out, roll your tongue into a nice little pipe, as if you're sucking on a polo. Breathe in through that, and then exhale out through the nose. Return to a normal breath. in to wiggle those fingers and toes. And the wrists and the ankles to join in with some easy round movements. Connecting the nervous system back up a little bit, just becoming a little bit more aware of our position on the mat. Allow yourself to stretch out in any way that feels good when you're ready on an exhale. Follow your instincts, whatever you need. And then everyone's going to slide the heels one leg at a time in towards the body. So you can let the knees drop in towards your chest very easily. So the softest, easiest of hugs, really. Just using a little bit of weight in the arms to draw the legs towards you. Maybe rocking out through the spine gently or stirring the hips. Whatever it is, small, soft and gentle. Most respect for your own body. Keeping it nice and balanced. Moving towards that blissed state. And take a breath in, use an exhale to roll over onto our right side. And the chest in towards the ground as you exhale. Use your hands to press into the floor and move through your spine to an easy sitting posture for you, whatever that may be. Using props or not. Sitting tall when you're ready, bring the hands towards your heart as you open your eyes with a long, slow breath in. And use an exhale slowly, letting the chin drop. Holding the belly drawn to the spine, simple bow forms. Bowing the head down. Inhaling, letting the spine build with the breath. Eventually the head can lift, the eyes open. Namaste. Thank you for joining. Hope you enjoyed. See you again on the mat soon.